This video is a quick overview of GameSir's wired controllers. So these two are the T7 series, the more budget side of controllers, and then the ones at the bottom here are more expensive, with the G7HE in white and the Flux, which is on the right there. And the more expensive ones have these paddles on the back. And these come unbound by default, but you can use the GameSir software on PC to bind them to anything. And then the settings actually stay on the controller, they're saved locally, so you don't need the software. Of course, that means you don't need it on the Xbox, and you don't even need it running on the PC once you've set it up. And then the Flux controller has one additional feature on top of all of that, which is just simply RGB lighting that you can fully customize. And all of these controllers have wired connections with detachable USB cables, and they use Type C to Type A, with the Type C cable being on the controller. And be noted that there is a difference in quality between these cables on the different models. So the T7 ones you see on the top, they're the more budget controllers. They come with silicon covered USB cables that feel like they might last a year, maybe two, and they might start falling apart. The ones at the bottom, the more expensive controllers, they have braided cables that feel like they're going to last at least a decade. I'll also mention that these cables are made specifically for the controllers, as they have special molding so that they slot in. So it's not just the USB Type-C connection you have, but the additional bit of the actual plastic housing designed to slot in and give you extra stability when it's in there, which means less chance of losing connection or a cable accidentally getting pulled out. But of course you can use any Type-C to Type-A cable that you have. So it is a major bonus point that it is a detachable cable that you can replace very easily if need be. Now let's take a look at aesthetics. So you've got three options when it comes to the T7. You've got this transparent blue, and then you've got a transparent red. Unfortunately, I don't have that, but you can imagine what that might look like. And then you have a solid white with orange highlights. And these are pretty good range of colors and options for the T7, which is the budget range. And then when you move up in price, you've got the G7HE, which is different from this controller you can see here with the orange highlights, as it is simply white and gray. And this also comes in black as well. So these ones are actually very subtle in the colorings and much more muted overall. And then if you want to take it up a notch and go for something far more colorful, you do have the Khalid. And this is actually the Flux version we're looking at right now, which of course has all that blingy RGB you seen earlier. There's also a non-Flux version, which is about the same price, and they simply just have a slightly different shell. And let's end this video with a quick conclusion, and that is that the T7s, the budget controllers, are the ones I would always choose. They seem to have the features I need and I'm perfectly happy with. The only problem is that USB Type-C cable. Because it's not braided, it is definitely going to break after a couple of years. It is not nearly as good as the more expensive ones, which is a real pity, and it's the only real downside to the budget side of these controllers. Now, all of the controllers do have one major flaw, and it's the D-pad. It is an old school D-pad like I used to have on like the 360 and stuff like that. It just isn't very good, and when I'm clicking left or right, sometimes it'll take an input as an up or down. So unfortunately, it's just not perfect. The new Xbox controllers, the official ones, they have a much better D-pad these days, which they took off the Elite that was introduced with it and then put it onto the normal controllers with the current generation. And these ones' D-pads are definitely a couple of generations behind the official one. So if you are someone who plays a game that uses the D-pad a lot, then I wouldn't recommend these. But if you're using, like for me, for shooting games and stuff, then this is a perfectly good controller, and I'm very happy with the budget ones. And then if you're someone who likes to use the paddles, then I highly recommend going up for the more expensive ones here, because those paddles are perfectly good, and it's great that they're all customizable as well. And then lastly, there's one great feature with all these controllers, and that is that you can use the PC software to customize them and do whatever you want with them, and then you can plug it into your Xbox and use it with that software running on the controller with whatever profiles you set up, which is just perfect. It also means you can mess around with dead zones as well, which is great. So let's say you start to get a drift on one of the thumbsticks here, which presumably will happen. I've only had these controllers a couple of months, but presumably in the long term that will happen. You can go into the software and tweak the dead zones so that you can compensate for that drift, instead of in every single game slowly changing your settings as the controller drift goes off. You can just modify this on PC so that that doesn't have to be a problem. But yeah, very happy with these GameSir controllers. I am surprised because I'm someone who grew up with third-party controllers being terrible. It is nice to see that there's some budget ones here that are actually really good to use and high quality. So I'm very happy about the third-party controller market these days. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, leave a like and a comment, and I'll catch you next time.